Hey, it's Donny A. When we play a solo on guitar, we typically use scales to play our solos, and that's because scales have all the right notes of the key in them. But that doesn't mean that you have to use all of the notes in the scale. And we as guitar players like to play a lot of notes, and we like to overplay. I'm guilty of it. Most people are guilty of it. And what you need to do is set some limitations to yourself. So what I'm going to do in this lesson is show you how you can drastically improve your solos by just setting some limitations for yourselves. We're going to have a backing track, a B7 to an E7, and we're going to use the B minor pentatonic scale over this. When you play the B minor pentatonic scale, what a lot of people do is they run up and down the scale, they do licks all over the scale, and they basically take the whole position that they're in and just keep playing all the notes. But what we're going to do is we're going to just take one section of that scale and we're going to stick to it. And that section is right here on the 7th fret of the D string. It starts on the 7th fret of the D string, and it goes 7, 9, 7, 9 on the G, and then up to 11 on the G string. So that little box actually has all the notes of the pentatonic scale in it. So it has the 5 notes of the pentatonic scale in it. It's just not in the typical order that you see the pentatonic scale. And this is helpful to grasp, less is more, right? Because you have this full box here, this full form 1 box, and we're just taking a little bit of that, and then we're, sliding over into our form 2. And with that little section of that box, you're going to get all the notes of the pentatonic scale, but you're not going to need to overplay. You're not going to need to play, this big box, right? So we're just going to use this little box. And we're going to start there. So now that we're limited to the notes that we have, it already gives us that less is more. You can make more with just focusing on this. So, one great thing for creativity in general is just to set limitations to what you're trying to create or trying to do, because those limitations help you. Instead of having all these options, you just have a few options. So that's very helpful. And then another thing that we need to do for this less is more concept is add space. And you can add space by just hanging on a note, but basically you just do one lick or one idea and then let that idea breathe. So this is phrasing, right? Phrasing in soloing is a very hard concept to start getting good at, right? Because as guitar players, we like to play notes. So this is really a good thing to work on, and you only have a few notes to work on, and then you can add space. So once you do an idea, add some space. You can just hold on a note, add some vibrato, right? Something like this. Right there, that would be adding space. And you'll realize as you start doing this and adding space, you're going to get more ideas in your head as you're adding that space, right? So I had that little lick that was... And that made me think of... something like that. That made me think of that little idea. And then if you like that idea, you can play it again, and then you can do a little variation off of it. I'm here to help you get better at guitar. So if you're a guitar player who wants to get better, then please like and subscribe. And with this, what you should really be working on is you should be working on all your technique too. You know, you have your slides. It's great to slide, obviously, from this 9th fret on the G string to the 11th. And then you can slide back. You have your hammer-ons, pull-offs. Your vibrato is huge, so when you're holding on a note, you should really add some vibrato to it instead of just doing something like this. That would be no vibrato, and that doesn't add a lot to it. So, and you can do your vibrato at different speeds too. But really play around with that technique, and that's going to add a lot of personality and feel and everything to your solos. Is when you're adding those hammer-ons, those slides, the vibrato, and things like that. And another thing that's great in the pentatonic scale is to add double stops. Double stops are just a great way. It's where you just play 2 notes at once, right? And those double stops are a great way to add some like real grit to your solos. So those double stops you can add in this little box too. So you have a ton of options here. And then as you get comfortable with this box is movable. So it's within all the shapes of the pentatonic. And I'm not going to go fully through that right now, but once you get to the top of this box or the bottom down at the 11th fret, it's going to start over again right below that. So then the same notes are right here. So once you get comfortable with that, you realize you can play it in form 1, you can play it in form 2, form 3, and so on. And it just keeps repeating. So you're comfortable in that box, you can play in it, you feel good about it, and you're confident in it. Then you can move it to the other forms, and you can start moving up the neck without playing all these big forms of the pentatonic. And I personally think it's super important to learn all the forms of the pentatonic and all those notes so that you can get comfortable moving around the guitar neck. But it's really hard to solo with those at first because it's just like too much, right? And you'll realize eventually that all those forms are just repeating shapes. They're just kind of, shifting what strings they start on and everything, which is really cool once you understand that, because then you can move from, form 1 to form 2, and you can play the same notes in the different forms, and you can find a lick in one place and play it in another place within the scale. And that's really cool. But for now, we want to just stick with this one little box and try and grow your ideas in it. You can do repeating licks in these ideas to build some tension, and then, do some variations of that to release that tension. And another thing we didn't talk about is just bending. It's really cool. It was really cool to slide up from the 9th fret to the 11th fret on the G. It's also great to bend that note too. You could bend any of the notes. That one obviously works the best, but you could do little half-step bends and stuff just to create tension. There's so many little ideas you can do with just these 5 notes and just this little form. And another thing while you're practicing this, if you're going to look up backing tracks, I mean, I have a looper pedal going. That's my favorite way to practice soloing, is just to set a loop and then play over it. But if you're going to do this with a looper pedal or a jam track or anything, look up like a slow backing track, right? Because it's a lot easier to practice soloing over a slow based rhythm song than it is over a song with a fast BPM. Once you get comfortable with this, you can really start figuring out the intervals that you're playing within those scales. And if you want to learn more about that, then you can watch this video right here.